Hello, this is the ProSource Podcast. I'm Kevin Devine, Director of Digital Marketing Content for ProSource Wholesale. In this series, we'll focus on home remodeling, especially kitchens and bathrooms. You'll hear from those in the know, including our corporate merchandisers, showroom team members, and the trade professionals who ultimately make it happen. We're glad you've joined us. Enjoy. So I'm joined today by Shane Riley. Shane, thanks for joining us here today.
I appreciate it. Great to be here.
So let's start with a simple question. Who are you and what do you do for ProSource Wholesale?
As you said, I'm Shane Riley. I'm the Vice President of Kitchen and Bath for ProSource. I head up, the training for all of our designers, the merchandising in the stores, a lot of the manufacturers we select and the new products we bring to the showrooms. Pretty much everything you see in the showroom, we have an entire team that focuses on that. So try and listen to a lot of our trade pros and what they want and their customers want. So that's typically day in, day out.
Okay. About how long have you been working for ProSource now?
Seems like a long time, but 20 years I've been with ProSource. And I started off, in training and in sales. And in many ways, we decided to enter the kitchen bath business in 2009. So I haven't always been in the kitchen bath business, although it's been roughly 12, 13 years. And we started it because we started listening to our trade pros and talking to them about other categories. And what we found was that a lot of them struggled in the kitchen bath category when you think about an independent trade pro and their customers. And we began to test several concepts in our stores. And that just grew to today where we have 140 kitchen bath departments in the ProSources. We've got the flooring integrated with it. So it's a great place to do a project. And that was the original concept back then.
So we've used a term here. I was going to ask how you got into the kitchen and bath industry.
I kind of just flowed right into it for you, made it easy.
We're on the same mind here.
Yeah,
you knew what I was going to say. So we've used the phrase there, kitchen and bath. What's all encompassed within that term, kitchen and bath?
Well, it'd be the kitchen and the bathroom, Kevin.
Wow, that's deep.
I didn't know, but I think what you're referring to is like what types of products.
Exactly.
So when you think about the kitchen and you think about ProSource, it's the cabinets, the countertops, the plumbing fixtures, the sinks, the hardware that goes with it. But also in the kitchen, it's also the design. So, a lot of we have over 200 designers that work for ProSource, and they're very skilled at designing that kitchen. When you think about the bathroom, same things. It's everything you need for the bathroom. The tile, the tile work that you do in there, or the LVT, the bathroom vanities, countertops again, obviously all the plumbing fixtures. And one thing that we've done over the last, 4 or 5 years is we've really expanded our bath products. So we are a single source for you, especially if you're doing a bath remodel, whether it's a powder room or a master bath. We can get every product that you need and we can complete that project for you all at ProSource, one spot, however you want to work with us.
So 20 years overall with the company and 12-ish years in this particular role. You've seen a lot of changes. You say you also talk to the pros. You want to make sure that from the trade professional standpoint that you're offering the products and services that they need. What sort of trends are you seeing in the kitchen and bath industry right now?
Sure. There's a lot going on in the kitchen bath industry. One thing that makes it pretty exciting is it's very fashion forward. So you look at a lot of these magazines and you see, great ideas in the kitchens, and, you can think of ways that you can make it your own. But I think there's 4 main things I'll bring up that customers talk a lot about or wish they did more in their kitchen. And one of those to start with is the storage solutions inside cabinets. And I think a lot of people forget about that. You focus on the door style and things like that, but what you put inside those cabinets can make such a difference with how you use the space. And some of the interesting things that we've seen is obviously there's 10 different ways you can store your spices if you're a cook. Cooking utensils, there's different things you can store those just to make it easier for all the different things you have, including your cutting knives and things like that. We've got charging stations built into the cabinetry. which it makes sense for a lot of people today and their active households and kids. You can at least always find a charger, hopefully. And then finally, we've got some vendors that are actually putting in biometric locking drawers. So they're integrating technology into it, which is pretty exciting. So one thing, when you go into ProSource, if you actually open all the cabinets, you will see a lot of these storage solutions integrated in, and ones that you wouldn't see at other places. And we really try and do a good job with showing that. I think the next big trend that we see is with countertops. And one thing that customers want is they want the look of natural stone, but they want the durability of quartz. So a lot of the new quartz countertops mimic natural stone. They bring in a lot of the movement, the coloring, different types of shading, which makes the product look great, consistent, and it's very durable. So a lot of customers are doing that. And, this year, a lot of our suppliers have introduced a lot of new colors and styles that is pretty exciting. The next big trend is, this one isn't that exciting, but if you're an active household with young kids, and you're thinking you want either painted cabinets or something like that, those kids can do a number on those cabinets. So a lot of our suppliers are introducing laminate cabinet doors, and they look very similar to painted, but they're extremely durable. They can hold up to those kids, the dogs, everything you run into. It's just an option to look at without sacrificing any style. And then finally for the bathroom, water savings is a big topic these days. So a lot of the major suppliers have really introduced a lot of water saving features in their products without not a lot of loss of performance. And they keep getting better and better at that, which is exciting. So those are four main things. I know you also talked to Eka, who's on our team, and she'll probably have some ideas too.
So one thing just occurred to me as you were saying that, all these different advancements, all these different options, does it become a bit overwhelming for the customer, for either the pro or for the homeowner, or is it just a welcomeness from them to have all those options available to them because everybody's different, everybody's circumstances are different?
I think our strategy in ProSource is we have a wide selection of different things. We can pretty much get any product, any style, but I think it can be overwhelming, especially if you just come in not sure what you're going to do. So, if you come in with an idea or a general concept, our team can put that together for you. And I think that gets rid of some of the overwhelmingness. But, certain things, looking at storage solutions, looking at hardware, that can be fun, especially if you start thinking about how you're going to use the space. At ProSource, our showrooms, our merchandising in store is very focused. So you will see some newest trends, but you also see some popular styles to at least get you started.
So you talked about a lot of these trends and where things are going. Do you find that a lot of products are not only being made, but being purchased specifically that are trendy versus maybe say more timeless? Is there a slant more in that direction?
Tough question. I think the best way to answer it is overall, people are probably going more with a timeless look, but let me put that in perspective. So shaker door style in cabinets is still a top seller. Right. What is amazing to me is how vendors of our top suppliers can have different variations of the shaker door style. So which is just, a square door style. They'll round the edges or they'll bevel the edges different ways. There are different thicknesses in the rail. You can go skinnier or you can do wider. So if you think about that, that's a timeless, simple look. But what we're seeing a lot of customers doing and a lot of trade pros is they'll add accents in to make it their own. So it could be an island with a special color or a wood finish or stain. They could do something different with the flooring or the backsplash or even the countertop, or even create a zone that adds more color. It could be a coffee bar. It could be more of a hutch setup in the kitchen, something like that. So overall timeless for the main part, but you'll start seeing more trends or things in a certain section or a highlighted area of the space.
Do you think that trends become sort of a factor in the age of the internet that we are in? Everybody comes out, tons of blogs and publications and TV shows and et cetera and streaming shows that all talk about the trends and where things are going. And Do you think that sort of has an influence on people's decisions on which direction they go?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, kitchen and bath is the fashion industry. And so people will move, and now it moves slower than clothing or other things like that, but they do move towards things that are more popular and trendy. How you implement that in your home, especially if you're doing a kitchen remodel and you want to keep it for a decade. I think that consumers weigh that when they're thinking about, their decisions.
Okay. So with both kitchens and bathrooms, the way that they are generally designed, you can approach things either all at once or maybe take parts of it. Do you find that most remodels for either in kitchens or bathrooms tend to focus on maybe a particular area, a particular product, or are they taken more as a whole?
That's hard to tell from, just from talking to a lot of our designers and kind of the projects that they're working on would be my perspective. There's probably two sides. So in the kitchen side, if you want to totally change the space and relay it out, obviously we're doing a full remodel. And that includes all the products, including electrical, things like that. But, you do see a lot of customers that will, paint their perimeter cabinets and maybe redo the island and the countertops and the flooring. So that would be a partial project update, especially if the layout is good and the cabinets style you still like. In the bathroom, the same kind of applies. If you're looking for a completely new look, we're going to have to update the entire thing. But a lot of customers right now will do a simple, flooring update in the bathroom, and they'll replace their vanity with a furniture vanity, which gives you new styles. It's an easy upgrade. Plus, within a lot of our furniture vanities that we offer, there's a lot of storage solutions in there also for makeup, hair dryers, and things like that. That make it, even more useful for the space. So that's how I would think about it based on what we see.
So how does this intersect maybe you talked about how it's a bit of the fashion industry in these rooms. So how does that intersect with budget if they have, say, a particular piece within that room that they want to keep? Like they really like their countertops. They're thinking of changing everything else. But now that influences perhaps other product choices or the overall design of the space. How do you find that intersecting with all of this?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Well,
rephrase it.
I'll rephrase. So
countertops is a tough example. Mean, if you think about countertops, you can update your backsplash, you can update your flooring. You really can't change your cabinets. You could paint them. Right. That would be the option.
So it's more about if there's an element in the room that they really want to keep that, and that becomes a bit of a focal point, and then they're building around that. How much does that actually come into play much in
I don't think we see that too much.
Okay. So you see more of the overall change.
I think it's the overall change.
Okay.
And a lot of it can also be a financial decision based on, I want this look, but I can keep these certain parts of my space. So how do we modify that and then add new pieces to it to at least achieve the look or style you wanted? So.
Okay. So you're talking about making major changes in two of, if either ranking as high on the list of most used rooms, or they are, in fact, the most used rooms. So remodeling can be and should be enjoyable, but it can also be very stressful. So what advice would you give to somebody looking at this and saying, here's how you could bring the fun out of it and don't get so freaked out with all these changes that you might be making in those rooms?
I think, I've been through several remodels myself. And I think, how you think about it is planning does help. And I think the first thing is expect there's going to be some unexpected things that come up. It could be, as you're demoing the space, there's something there that you didn't expect, a pipe, a vent, an HVAC duct. In fact, we were doing a remodel on my house years ago, and there was a pipe we didn't realize that from the second floor that we had to modify and change some things. And that can be stressful, but if you realize you usually can work around everything and still get the look you want. So I think, first of all, realize there's going to be some unexpected things, and make sure you hire a good contractor that continues to communicate with you. And I think that would help. But when you think about, making it fun, I would say just remember your vision. I think one thing you can do is, keep the initial design that you have or the inspiration photos that you have, and then document your progress and see how it goes. I mean, it's pretty exciting to see, especially once you're done with the demo and product starts going in, and seeing the changes. So I would say that. And then finally, if you're going to be without your kitchen for a while, what are you going to do without that? And I think to plan, how you're not or what you're going to do without that space for a while, will help alleviate some of the stress. And hopefully, your project is completed within time, and you get to enjoy your new kitchen or bathroom. And a lot of customers, by the time it's done, they're so excited to see the vision.
Okay. So last question for you.
Okay.
We've talked about some of the advancements and some of the trends and where things are going, but now I'd like you to look into your crystal ball and stare into the future. Where do you see products within the kitchen and bath industry going as we move forward?
I think this is just, at ProSource, we're always talking to the top, suppliers in kitchen and bath. And we always look for, what new things can we bring forward. So you're still seeing more technology being integrated into products in different ways. You'll continue to see technology and water savings. We see those things. We're starting, the last few years, the suppliers really didn't launch a lot of new products. We're beginning to see them launch some new products, whether it's finishes, colors, changes in that. So I think on the product side, that's what you'll see. But also I think for ProSource and for our trade pros and their clients, our team is really focused on improving and expanding the training of our kitchen bath designers. So we're elevating a lot of the design skills of our designers, whether they're designing a kitchen or a bathroom, so they can be more efficient, but also new ideas and ways to use the space and integrate some of this technology, which is pretty exciting.
Hey, great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to join us here today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Shane Riley. Thanks. So we're switching gears now, and we're joined by Ekka Sukmawati. Ekka, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to be here.
So let's start with the basics. Who are you and what do you do for ProSource Wholesale? Same questions that we asked Shane.
Sure. As Kevin said, my name is Ekka Sukmawati. I am the Director of Kitchen and Bath Design and Merchandising for ProSource. So I have been now with ProSource for about 10 years. So shorter 10 years than Shane has been with the company. But really, I've been in the kitchen and bath industry for over 20 years now. This is really my trade as a kitchen and bath designer.
So what got you into it? What got you into the kitchen and bath?
So to tell you the truth, I got into kitchen and bath mainly because at the time, after I graduated from college, there was not really much openings for interior designers. And I kind of somewhat stumbled into kitchen and bath and was hired by a local company right out of college back in Michigan, where I went to school and with my interior design degree. So I really learned to become a kitchen designer within this first job. Honestly, learning about designing, functionality. I mean, at the point, I didn't understand what a filler is, right? I mean, that's kind of like a basic thing for a kitchen and bath designer. So that's really how I got into it. And then the next thing you know, 20 years later, I'm learning a lot. I was obviously designing and selling for customers in different parts of showrooms I was at. And until I got into ProSource, 10 years after that, I got into ProSource and pretty much expanded my expertise and my learning curve within the industry, and I'm loving it ever since.
By the way, I think in this podcast, that's what I am, just a filler. I'm just filling a little gap here between us when you pause in speaking. So, all right. So we say ProSource has kitchen and bath products. So what all does that mean? Let's see how your answer compares to Shane's in that scenario.
So for me, when we say that, it means we cater to the entire project. Right. I think a lot of times when it comes down to interior design, which what kitchen and bath project is all about, it's all about interior design. People get timid about it. They get nervous. They don't know what they don't know. basically. So when they come to us to ProSource, when we say kitchen and bath, we try to cater that whole process of how to complete that entire project that they have in their mind visually to achieve that. And that's what we do. And that's what we offer, especially with our experienced kitchen and bath designers that we have in our locations.
So in that capacity, and that as we take the context of that question or that answer that you just gave, what advice would you give to a trade professional or to a homeowner that's undertaking a kitchen or bathroom project? What considerations should they keep in mind?
So the first thing I always say is knowing your expectations, understanding the expectation, and also understanding the purpose why you are starting the project in the first place, right? Because my rule of thumb is when it comes to design, it always has to start with functionality first. And then secondly is the aesthetic value. That kind of one follows the other. But for a homeowner, if they understand the purpose of their project is whether they want the longevity for their home, they want to stay in their home for the next 10, 50 years, or they want just to do a remodel because they want to sell it. Those are two different concepts that they need to understand what's available to them when it comes down to the product that they can get, the budget, and also the design aspect, and also timeline. And that's probably the biggest thing that most consumer need to understand. How long does this process take from beginning to end? Because they might expect, I could get a brand new kitchen or bath within the next 2-3 months. Sure, that would be realistic, but that all contains to what it is that you're getting as far as design, the project, and also the budget.
Well, if you look at television or any streaming service, that project can be done in about 60 minutes.
Sure, which is why I don't watch those shows. I watch something else when I get home.
There you go. So let's break it down. That was sort of a macro view. Let's take maybe what we'll call a little bit of a micro view.
Sure.
Take a project in a kitchen versus a project in a bathroom. What are the different considerations from one versus the other in those two specific rooms?
Well, the main thing that I could think of when it comes down to those two different projects is really the product, right? So in kitchen projects, typically the largest value or the investment is really in cabinetry, and obviously everything else that goes along with it, there's a large investment as well. But the larger percentage is in cabinetry, and also the timeline for the cabinets to come in, because typically they take the most minimum probably 5 to 6 weeks. It could go on to maybe 15 weeks, depending what it is. When it comes down to the bath project, now we look at a larger scale of the plumbing fixtures, right? Which is now the value of the budget on the plumbing fixtures is larger than it is on cabinets, because now we're only looking possibly 3 vanities or maybe freestanding furniture vanities. But then also think about the value of your tile work, other plumbing fixtures aspects such as shower base, shower doors, bathtubs, right? So that becomes larger. So when we think about that, the value of what the consumers are putting in each of those product category, then it also changes the timeline of when you can get those projects as well, the product as well.
So Shane used a term and you used the same term, and we've had this discussion before, so we might as well get a little clarification on this. Most people would simply call it a vanity or a bathroom vanity, but you've both used the term furniture vanity. What's the distinction there? So
the distinction is really, furniture as it sounds, is a piece of furniture, right? I think something that has a little bit more value of intricacy to the design aspect, little details of how it's designed. And it's also typically it's freestanding, which means it doesn't necessarily go all the way down to the floor. And also sometimes, may not be as permanently fixed onto the back of the wall. But in application for homes, obviously it has to be attached to the back of the wall. But it just has more of a free-flowing look to it and feel versus just something that's permanently more stationary that's also larger in scale.
Okay. Yeah. So what are some of the influential factors involved in the product decisions that are made for a remodel, especially in those two rooms? What are some of the drivers?
I think it's, again, timeline.
Okay.
So I always say I'm really big on timeline when it comes down to expectation of customer, right? So if you want something quick to get it done quickly, then these are all your options. You may not have a lot of options, right? So you're kind of condensing that aspect. But if you want something much more of a grandiose feel to it, that you want have a lot more intricacy as far as features and benefits, then you think about longer lead time, a longer timeline that you have to look at. But then it kind of opens up to all the other different choices that you can have for those products.
Okay. Do you find that trends or what is trending or what people are being told is trending, that becomes a big factor in their decision?
It does. I would say it's kind of a half and half in my ratio. The way I look at that. Again, if I go back to, if I was a designer asking a customer that walks in through the door, they say, I want to do my kitchen or bath project. The first thing I'm going to ask them would be, what is your timeline? When would you like this to be completed? That's the first thing I ask. And then I also talk about the expectations. What is it that you're looking for functionality-wise, right? What is it that you're trying to get? Are you trying to convert your regular master bath to a spa suite? Then we're thinking into a different aspect of design process to it, right? So it's really all about what the customer wants and needs, and we cater to that to fit into that aspect.
So what are some of the common ways that a homeowner can or should navigate budget decisions?
So a lot of times I would say you got to look at the aspect of the value of your house. Because typically, if a homeowner wants to say this is their forever home, then the value of the house may not be as influential into what type of budget they want to spend into the whole entire project. But if they want to only stay there for 5 or 10 years and get a good return on investment for selling aspect, then, it's a whole different, setup that they should probably look at the value of the house. What's the median income, perhaps in that demographics into that area, right within the vicinity of their zip code per se. And there's also tools online. So some of our vendors actually provide what they call a budget calculator that consumer can go to that website and start plugging in percentages of value that they want to spend based on their home value.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's a question we asked Shane. Let's see what your
it's a
take is
question, I feel.
Yeah, it could be. A home remodel, that can be stressful. It actually doesn't matter which room it is. It can be stressful. So what are some good ways to go about bringing the fun out of into that project?
The first thing I would say is be involved. Okay. So a lot of consumer, when they come in, they don't know what they don't know, right? So they turn to us as experts to know what's trending, what's not. However, again, it's the question that I would ask a consumer to say, what is the style that you like? So most times I feel it's beneficial for us to give consumer some homework for them to do, right? So if you think about the influences of social media, it's huge. Right now, people just don't use Instagram or TikTok just for fun videos, right? They actually go there to look for some design and remodeling ideas. And a lot of businesses and even consumer are posting some of their projects on those two platforms. Obviously, if you go to Pinterest, you go to House, those are good inspirations to kind of start looking at. And I always ask customer to basically bring in some pictures, look at some magazines and rip up some pages that you like, because now they feel they're more invested into the project and they know that they are getting what they want versus what's being just me as a designer saying you should do this. Well, in the end, it's not my house. I will do whatever it is that I need to do to make sure that the consumer is going to be happy with the vision, to deliver the vision that they have.
Okay. Yeah. What are some of the services? We talked about the products. What are some of the services that ProSource Wholesale offers that differentiate us out there?
The services, obviously, I think is more the fact that we have experienced kitchen and bath designer, knowing the trends, knowing the design aspect, and how to present that aspect to the homeowner. I think it's a huge benefit that we have. And I think that we excel within the industry is because not only we have just the kitchen and bath designer, we also have the account managers that's really also part of that, being themselves more involved into the project as well. Because typically, I mean, Kevin, I've done a job as a kitchen and bath designer where I literally did the whole entire process from beginning to end. And not only that gets exhausting, but it's also the fact that I think the value for consumer to know that it's just not one person that's available for my project. It gives them a peace of mind because let's say if I was out sick or if I was on vacation, they'll have somebody else to go to. So I think that team effort, it's a big benefit for us to offer our consumer great. Trade pros.
So last question, then I'll let you off the hook. So look into your crystal ball. Okay. And in the realm of kitchen and bathroom products, where do you see the future going here?
So I think when it comes to that, we have to look beyond the kitchen and bath project, especially for what we offer as to our trade pros and clients. So think about application of cabinetry into a different setup as part of the home, not just kitchen and bath. We're looking at home offices. We're looking at laundry rooms, mud rooms. We're even doing dog baths, right? As a combination. Again, we're fitting into the lifestyle of these homeowners that has expanded, especially since back in 2020 when, the pandemic happened, right? So now everybody's adjusting and they're seeing a lot more value to their house. So think about people now wanting to expand their bathroom to a spa suite. Okay, so there's more value to the bath project itself, to the plumbing fixtures, vanities, the size of the tile, the flooring, whatever that may be. And then we can also look into the offering that we have with our higher end semi-custom cabinet line to do some customization to make dressers for the bedrooms. And we can also do closets, walk-in pantries, right? So I think the possibility is pretty much endless when we think about what else can we use our product that is already available into the rest of the home, not just kitchen and bath. So it's really expanding. And the other thing I want to mention is when it comes down to technology, we see technology in appliances, right? Granted, we don't sell appliances. However, that technology aspect has been expanding to interior lighting that now we also use in our cabinetry in kitchens and bath, and also the fact that some of our plumbing fixtures offer those automatic setups that it's more reliable by using Alexa, right? So 2-person showers, that's huge. The footprint of that, and the people want a car wash type shower system.
Okay.
Hey, to each his own. We try to cater to what they need, right? So, there's a lot more that we need to expand our project thinking when it comes down to what people are looking for the consumer.
I look forward to seeing the car wash showers.
It's also been done, Kevin.
All right. Well, Eka, thank you for joining us here today. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you joining us on the ProSource podcast. Please like and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, follow us on social media, visit our website at ProSourceWholesale.com, and visit your local ProSource Wholesale showroom for all your home remodeling needs.